Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. This video explores the intersection of digital art history and the sociological phenomenon of what has been colloquially termed divorce university. The following content is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal, financial, or psychological advice. Concepts discussed regarding marital dissolution, asset valuation, and career pivots in the digital age are based on historical trends and case studies, not individual guarantees. Viewers should conduct their own due diligence and consult with licensed professionals regarding their specific legal or financial situations. What if the most expensive mistake of your life wasn't the marriage itself, but the fact that you didn't understand the digital canvas it was painted on? Right now, across the United States, a quiet revolution is happening in the way we perceive domestic endings. We are seeing the rise of a new educational subculture, a digital art history of the American household that is being rewritten through the lens of screen-mediated trauma and creative reconstruction. Statistically, the digital footprint of a modern relationship is more complex than the physical one. And for the thousands of Americans currently enrolled in the School of Hard Knocks known as Divorce University, the old textbooks are useless. We are entering an era where your browser history is your biography, and your shared digital assets are the new Louvre of your personal history. If you don't understand the abstract perspective of this digital shift, you aren't just losing a partner, you are losing the rights to your own narrative. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand exactly how the digital art of the 21st century is documenting the collapse of the nuclear family, and how you can navigate this transition with the precision of a master curator. We are solving a massive unspoken problem for the US audience today: the total lack of literacy in the digital aesthetics of life transitions. Most people view a divorce as a series of paperwork and court dates. We are here to show you that it is actually an evolution of your personal brand and a masterclass in digital curation. You are going to learn how to analyze the data-driven brushstrokes of your past, and how to frame your future using the specific tools of digital art history. This is not about the end. It is about the abstract reimagining of the self in a hyper-connected, digital-first world. To truly understand this, we have to look at the concept of the divorce university, not as a literal institution, but as a conceptual framework for the massive influx of information an individual must process during a life pivot. In the United States, the average person spends hundreds of hours researching legal precedents, property division, and co-parenting strategies online. This self-directed education is the curriculum of the digital age. But where does art history fit in? It fits in the way we represent these struggles. Consider the shift from the 1950s oil-on-canvas portrait of a happy family to the 2026 digital collage of a fragmented life. We are seeing a move toward abstraction. In traditional art history, we look at the Renaissance as a period of rebirth through perspective. In the digital divorce university, we are seeing a similar shift in perspective, but it is one driven by pixels and metadata. When you look at your life through a digital lens, you see patterns that weren't visible in the analog world. For example, look at the case study of digital asset division in modern high-net-worth separations. We aren't just talking about bank accounts. We are talking about shared cloud storage, family digital photo albums, and even intellectual property created during the marriage. These are the artifacts of a digital civilization. Abstract perspective allows us to step back and view these artifacts not as sources of pain, but as data points in a larger historical trend. In the US, the trend is moving toward the democratization of information. The University of the Internet has made it so that the specialized knowledge once held only by elite legal professionals is now accessible to anyone with a high-speed connection. This has created a new class of educated laypeople who are using digital tools to curate their own outcomes. They are using software to visualize asset distribution, using AI to draft communication protocols, and using digital art platforms to express the emotional complexity of their transition. Let's dive deeper into the historical context. If we look at the history of art, we see that major social upheavals always lead to a change in visual language. The Industrial Revolution gave us Impressionism, the World Wars gave us Dadaism and Surrealism, the Digital Revolution, and the subsequent high rates of marital shifts in the US, is giving us a new kind of digital abstraction. We are no longer interested in a realistic depiction of a family. We are interested in the components. We are interested in the code. When you enter this online university of life, you are tasked with becoming a digital historian of your own life. You have to look at your archives. You have to categorize the images of your past. You have to decide which ones to keep in the permanent collection and which ones to move to storage. This process of curation is exactly what an art historian does with a museum collection. By applying the principles of art history to your personal digital data, you gain a level of emotional distance that is necessary for survival. It allows you to see your life as a series of compositions rather than a series of failures. Consider the step-by-step process of digital deconstruction. Step 1 is the audit. This is where you gather every digital artifact, every text, every email, every social media post, and view them as a cohesive body of work. Step 2 is the analysis. What are the recurring themes? What is the color palette of your digital life over the last decade? Is it vibrant and saturated, or has it become muted and gray? Step 3 is the abstraction. This is where you remove the emotional weight and look at the structural integrity of your life. This is where the divorce university really begins. We see this reflected in the way American culture consumes content. We are obsessed with the aesthetics of the struggle. Think about the rise of lifestyle influencers who document their divorces as a form of performance art. They are using the tools of digital art, lighting, framing, editing, and narrative arc to turn a private tragedy into a public curriculum. This is the abstract perspective in action. They are teaching their audience how to view their own lives through a lens of artistic production. In the US digital landscape, this has led to a fascinating phenomenon where the online community acts as a peer review board. In this metaphorical university, your peers are the thousands of others going through the same process. They critique your narrative, they offer insights based on their own case studies, and they help you refine your perspective. It is a collaborative form of digital art history where the subject is the self. Furthermore, the technology itself is shaping the history. Blockchain technology, for instance, is beginning to play a role in how we track the provenance of digital assets during a separation. Just as an art historian tracks the ownership of a painting from the artist's studio to the gallery, modern digital citizens are using decentralized ledgers to ensure the fair distribution of their digital legacy. This is a profound shift in how we value our history. It is no longer just about sentiment, it is about verifiable data. We must also address the socioeconomic implications of this. The divorce university is not equally accessible to everyone. In the US, there is a digital divide that affects who can participate in this new form of art history. Those with higher digital literacy and better access to technology are better equipped to navigate the abstraction of their lives. They can afford the tools that turn data into art and conflict into education. This creates a disparity in the historical record. Whose stories are being told through these digital archives? Whose lives are being abstracted and whose are being left in the raw, painful reality of the analog world? As we move forward in this series, we will explore the specific digital tools that are being used to rewrite the American narrative of the end. We will look at how virtual reality is being used in mediation to allow parties to see things from the other's perspective. A literal application of abstract perspective. We will look at the rise of the digital-only asset and how it challenges our traditional notions of marital property. And we will analyze the way the digital art world is responding to these trends, creating works that reflect the fractured, beautiful, and complex reality of life in the 21st century United States. The goal here is not just to survive the divorce university, but to graduate with a deep understanding of the digital history you are creating. Every click, every share, and every delete is a stroke of the brush. You are the artist, you are the historian, and you are the student. This is the new American masterclass. To understand the depth of this curriculum, let us look at the case study of Sarah, a digital marketing executive in Austin, Texas, in early 2026. Sarah represents the typical modern student of divorce university. Her marriage did not just end in a living room. It dissolved across a dozen synchronized devices, shared cloud subscriptions, and a smart home ecosystem that held the data-driven memory of her entire relationship. When Sarah began her transition, she realized that her legal counsel was focused on the physical house, while her entire life was housed in the digital cloud. This is where the abstract perspective of digital art history becomes a survival tool. Imagine if your life was a gallery exhibition where every piece of art was interactive and interconnected. In the traditional sense, art history looks at how a painting like Edward Hopper's Nighthawks captures the isolation of American life. In the digital age, we look at how a shared Google Calendar captures the breakdown of communication. The calendar is the canvas. The red blocks for soccer practice and the blue blocks for late work meetings are the brushstrokes. When those blocks begin to overlap or vanish, the composition of the life changes. For Sarah, analyzing her digital archives was not just about evidence. It was about understanding the aesthetic shift of her own existence. The U.S. digital landscape in 2026 has provided us with unprecedented tools for this analysis. We are seeing historical trends where individuals use data visualization software to map out their emotional and financial contributions over a decade. They are taking raw CSV files of bank statements and turning them into heat maps. This is where the line between accounting and digital art blurs. A heat map that shows a decline in shared spending and an increase in individual hobby funding is a piece of abstract art that tells a story of divergence. In the Divorce University, this is your first major assignment: the visualization of the divergence. Let us break down the step-by-step process of the digital provenance audit. A core pillar of this masterclass, provenance in art history, is the record of ownership of a work of art. In your personal digital history, provenance refers to the origin and movement of your digital assets. Step 1. Identify the master works. These are your primary accounts, email, social media, and financial portals. Step 2. Trace the metadata. Every photo you took during your marriage has metadata: GPS coordinates, timestamps, and device info. Step 3. Analyze the attribution. Who truly owns the digital rights to the family legacy? If one spouse was the primary curator of the digital photo library, does the other spouse have a right to the high-resolution originals, or just the compressed copies? In 2026, we are seeing case studies where the valuation of a digital footprint is becoming as significant as the valuation of a 401k. Think about a YouTube creator or an Instagram influencer in the US whose brand was built on their relationship. When that relationship ends, the digital art they created together, the videos, the posts, the stories, becomes a contested gallery. The Divorce University teaches you how to negotiate the future of this art. Do you archive the posts, effectively removing the art from the public eye? Or do you keep them up as a historical record, knowing that they still generate revenue? This is the new frontier of American digital art history. The abstract perspective also allows us to deal with the concept of the ghost in the machine. In art, this refers to the unintended meanings or spirits that inhabit a work. In a digital separation, these are the algorithmic echoes of a past life. Your Netflix recommendations still suggesting movies for your ex-spouse, or your smart thermostat still adjusting to their preferred temperature, are the hauntings of a previous era. The university curriculum here focuses on the digital exorcism, the process of recalibrating your algorithms to reflect your new, solo identity. This is not just a technical task. It is a psychological reclamation of your digital space. Consider the historical trends of how we store memory. For centuries, Americans kept letters in shoeboxes. These were physical artifacts that aged and faded. Today, we keep memories in the immutable form of the cloud. They do not fade. They remain high definition and hauntingly present. This leads to a unique challenge in digital art history: the inability to forget. The Divorce University emphasizes the importance of digital curation, the deliberate act of selecting what remains in your active consciousness. It is the difference between a cluttered basement and a curated museum wing. You must decide which digital files are masterpieces and which are sketches that should be relegated to the archives. We also see the rise of algorithmic mediation in the United States. In 2026, software platforms are being used to facilitate the division of household items through complex game theory algorithms. This is the ultimate expression of abstract digital art. You take a physical reality, the couch, the dining table, the lawnmower, and you turn them into digital tokens. The algorithm then finds the most equitable distribution based on the values assigned by both parties. It is a mathematical painting of fairness. It removes the brushstrokes of anger and leaves only the lines of logic. The deeper we go into this masterclass, the more we realize that the US public is hungry for this new form of literacy. We are no longer satisfied with the old ways of navigating endings. We want to understand the architecture of our digital lives. We want to know how the data we generated over 20 years of marriage can be reconstructed into a new foundation. This is why the study of digital art history is so vital. It provides the vocabulary to describe what is happening to us in a world that is increasingly mediated by screens. Think of your life as a long-form digital performance piece. The first act was the union, the second act was the building of the world, and the third act, the one you are in now, is the deconstruction and reimagining. In art, deconstruction is not destruction. It is the process of taking something apart to see how it works, and then using those parts to build something new. That is the potential outcome of attending this online university. You aren't just getting through a process. You are becoming a more sophisticated observer of your own digital evolution. But what happens when the digital art you created is used against you? What happens when the metadata reveals secrets you didn't even know you were keeping? This is the dark side of the digital archives, the part of the curriculum that deals with digital forensic aesthetics. We are seeing more and more cases where the technical details of a digital file, the edit history of a document, or the background of a video call become the turning point in a legal narrative. In the next part of this deep dive, we are going to look at the specific technologies that are transforming the American courtroom into a digital art gallery, and why your ability to interpret these works might be the only thing standing between you and a total narrative collapse. We are going to explore the rise of deepfake awareness in domestic litigation, and how the very definition of truth is being rewritten by the tools of digital art history. You won't want to miss how the next generation of U.S. digital citizens is fighting back against data-driven displacement. The transformation of the American courtroom into a digital art gallery is not a futuristic concept. It is the current reality of 2026. To understand this, we must look at the case study of Michael, a software architect in Seattle. During his high-stakes separation, the central piece of evidence was not a paper trail of bank statements, but a three-dimensional data visualization of his family's smart home activity logs. In this curriculum of Divorce University, Michael had to learn how to present this data as a historical narrative. Imagine if every time you walk through your front door, a digital paintbrush left a stroke on a canvas that could later be scrutinized by a judge. This is the reality of the sensor-driven household. Michael's legal team hired a digital forensic artist to translate thousands of lines of raw JSON code into an abstract heat map that demonstrated his consistent presence and caregiving routines. This is where digital art history meets the bar exam. The historical trends we are seeing in U.S. litigation suggest a massive shift toward the visual. Traditional testimony is being replaced by what we call forensic aesthetics. This involves the use of high-fidelity digital recreations and the analysis of pixel-level data to establish the provenance of an event. For students of this online university, the first lesson in advanced litigation is understanding the integrity of the digital file. Every digital image is composed of layers. There is the visual layer, the part you see, and the metadata layer, the part the computer sees. In 2026, the metadata is the primary source of truth. If a photo is presented in discovery, the digital historian looks for the exchangeable image file format or EXIF data. This data acts as the certificate of authenticity for the digital artifact. Step 1 in managing your digital narrative during a pivot is the verification of your own archives. You must treat your cloud storage like a museum curator treats a new acquisition. You verify the timestamp, the geolocation, and the device ID. If there is a discrepancy, the abstract perspective dictates that you do not view it as a failure, but as a point of investigation. Step 2 involves the use of hashing algorithms to freeze your digital evidence. A digital hash is a unique alphanumeric string that acts as a digital fingerprint for a file. Once a file is hashed, any change to a single pixel will change the hash, alerting the curator that the evidence has been tampered with. In the United States, this level of technical due diligence is becoming the baseline for protecting one's narrative. Imagine if a deepfake video was introduced as evidence in your life transition. In 2026, the technology to manipulate video and audio has reached a point where the human eye can no longer reliably distinguish between the authentic and the synthetic. This is why the Divorce University curriculum now includes a mandatory module on synthetic media literacy. We look at case studies where historical trends show an increase in the use of AI-generated audio clips to misrepresent a person's character. To fight back, U.S. digital citizens are turning to the tools of art history, specifically the study of lighting, shadow, and frame rate consistency. By analyzing the digital brushstrokes of a suspicious video, forensic artists can identify the telltale signs of algorithmic generation, such as unnatural blinking patterns or mismatched lighting on the skin's surface. This leads us to the concept of the digital ledger as a tool for narrative preservation. We are seeing a move toward using decentralized storage to house personal histories. By placing important digital artifacts on a blockchain, an individual ensures that their history cannot be altered or deleted by a third party. This is a form of digital art preservation that mirrors the way we protect physical masterpieces in climate-controlled vaults. In the context of a domestic shift, this means that your history, the photos of your children, the records of your achievements, the emails that prove your intent, is safe from the volatility of a shared cloud account. It is your personal wing in the Museum of Digital History. The complexity of this task is why the online university model has become so prevalent in the US. People are not just looking for a way out. They are looking for a way to reorganize their entire digital existence. They are learning how to use project management software to track the stages of their life pivot, treating each task as a milestone in a larger creative project. This is the ultimate application of the abstract perspective. When you view your life as a project, the emotional weight of individual setbacks is balanced by the progress of the overall timeline. You are not just a person in a crisis, you are a director managing a complex production. Furthermore, we must analyze the role of the digital avatar in these transitions. In 2026, many Americans have a significant presence in virtual worlds and social platforms where their identity is represented by a digital construct. When a marriage ends, what happens to the shared digital identity? There are cases where couples have built successful businesses or social movements around a shared online persona. The division of this persona requires a deep understanding of digital art and intellectual property. The Divorce University teaches you how to decouple these identities without destroying the value of the digital art itself. It is a delicate process of digital surgery. The educational tone of this masterclass is designed to empower the viewer with a sense of agency. By understanding the historical trends and the technical tools available, you move from a state of being overwhelmed to a state of being informed. For example, consider the potential outcomes of using AI to summarize years of digital communication. This is not about finding a smoking gun. It is about identifying patterns. Are the communications collaborative or combative? Is the tone consistent or does it shift dramatically? By using these digital tools, you can present a high-level abstract of your situation that is much more persuasive than a pile of printed emails. In the United States, the legal system is slowly catching up to these technological realities. Judges are increasingly open to seeing data visualizations and digital timelines. They appreciate the clarity that an abstract perspective provides. Instead of listening to hours of conflicting testimony, they can look at a single well-crafted digital chart that summarizes the relevant facts. This is the power of digital art history in action. It takes the messiness of human life and organizes it into a form that can be analyzed and judged with greater objectivity. However, the risk of data-driven displacement remains high. This occurs when an individual's digital history is weaponized to push them out of their own narrative. If you lose access to your digital accounts, you lose access to the evidence of your life. This is why the curriculum emphasizes digital security as a form of self-preservation. You must be the primary gatekeeper of your digital museum. This involves the use of hardware security keys, encrypted communication channels, and redundant backups. In the 2026 digital landscape, your security protocol is your armor. As we conclude this segment of the masterclass, we have seen how the tools of digital art history and forensic aesthetics are being used to navigate the most challenging transitions in American life. We have explored the importance of provenance, the threat of synthetic media, and the rise of the digital curator. But as we look toward the next phase of our deep dive, a new and even more complex question arises. How do we value the intangible? How do we put a price on a digital legacy that has no physical counterpart? In the next part, we are going to explore the economics of the digital soul. We will look at the case studies of digital estates, the rise of the virtual asset appraiser, and how the US audience is beginning to rethink the very concept of wealth in an era of digital abstraction. You will learn the specific steps for valuing your digital footprint, and why the most valuable thing you own might be something you can never touch. Prepare to enter the world of high-stakes digital appraisal, where the lines between art, data, and money disappear entirely. The transition from physical assets to the valuation of the digital soul represents the most significant shift in the American domestic landscape of 2026. To understand how we appraise the intangible, we must look at the case study of Elena, a digital creator based in Los Angeles. Elena spent a decade building a specialized online ecosystem centered around sustainable architecture. When her marriage entered the phase of deconstruction, the traditional appraisers looked at her home and her vehicle. They missed the most valuable asset in the room: her digital estate. This estate consisted of a high-authority domain, a meticulously indexed database of 3,000 design schematics, and a proprietary algorithm for predicting urban heat island effects. In the framework of Divorce University, Elena had to argue that these were not just hobbyist files, but a digital masterpiece with a verifiable market trajectory. Imagine if your most valuable possession was invisible to the naked eye. In the US today, We are seeing historical trends where the valuation of digital sentiment and influence is outpacing the valuation of real estate in certain sectors. This is where the abstract perspective of digital art history becomes a financial necessity. A digital asset appraiser looks at a YouTube channel or a social media profile not as a collection of videos, but as a living museum of human interaction. They look at the engagement rates as the attendance figures for the gallery. They look at the brand affinity as the provenance of the work. For students in this masterclass, understanding the math behind the art is step 1 in the digital appraisal process. Step 1 of the high-stakes digital appraisal involves the quantification of influence. In 2026, appraisers use a formula that factors in the lifetime value of a digital follower, the historical trend of content performance, and the cost of replication. If you were to disappear tomorrow, what would it cost to rebuild your digital footprint from scratch? This number is your baseline. Step 2 is the analysis of digital residuals. Just as a songwriter earns royalties for a track played on the radio, a digital creator in the US earns residuals from archived content, affiliate links, and automated digital products. These are the dividends of your digital art. Step 3 is the assessment of portable versus non-portable assets. Some digital art is tied to your physical persona. Other parts are decentralized and can be transferred. Understanding this distinction is vital for a fair distribution of the digital estate. Let us look at a scenario involving the concept of the virtual asset appraiser. Imagine if a US couple spent 5 years building a virtual storefront in a decentralized metaverse platform. They created digital fashion, abstract wearable art for avatars. In 2026, this storefront has a higher monthly revenue than many brick-and-mortar boutiques in New York City. The challenge for the divorced university student is, how do you value a storefront made of code? The appraiser looks at the scarcity of the virtual land, the intellectual property of the designs, and the community loyalty. This is the new American wealth. It is wealth that exists only because we agree it has value. Much like the masterpieces hanging in the National Gallery of Art. It is the ultimate expression of the abstract economy. In this deep dive, we must also address the valuation of data as a historical record. Case studies from 2026 show that personal data sets, the logs of our habits, preferences, and health metrics, are being sold to researchers and advertisers as high-value commodities. In a domestic split, who owns the data generated by the household? If a smart refrigerator has been tracking a family's nutrition for 5 years, that data has commercial value. It is a digital portrait of the family's consumption. The university curriculum teaches you to view this data as a joint artistic venture. Each person contributed to the data set. Therefore, each person has a claim to its value. We are also seeing a shift in how the US legal system perceives intellectual property created within the marital home. In the past, if you wrote a book, the copyright was clear. Today, if you spend your weekends training a personal AI model on your own writing and voice, you have created a digital twin, a piece of generative art that can continue to produce work in your style. The valuation of a digital twin is one of the most complex tasks in modern digital art history. Does the spouse have a right to the future earnings of an AI trained on shared life experiences? Historical trends suggest that we are moving toward a model of fractional ownership in these digital personas. This brings us to the concept of the digital legacy vault. Many Americans are now using encrypted vaults to store their most precious digital art, separate from their daily functional accounts. This is a strategic move to preserve the value of the assets during a period of transition. By treating these assets as a formal collection, with documented acquisition dates and valuation reports, you establish a clear historical record. This is exactly what a professional art collector does. They don't just buy art, they build a provenance file that justifies the value. In the divorce university, your provenance file is your most powerful tool in the negotiation room. The potential outcomes of this approach are profound. When you stop viewing your digital life as a mess of files and start viewing it as a curated estate, your leverage increases. You are no longer asking for a fair share of the bank account. You are negotiating the rights to a digital future. For example, consider the value of a high-ranking LinkedIn profile with 20,000 industry connections. In the US job market of 2026, that profile is a high-yield asset. It is the bridge to your next career pivot. The university teaches you how to protect the integrity of that asset, ensuring it isn't tarnished by the noise of the separation. Furthermore, we must consider the aesthetics of the digital buyout. In many US case studies, we see one party buying out the other's interest in a shared digital project. This requires a precise understanding of future value projections. If a couple shared a travel blog that is currently trending upward, the buyout must account for that growth. This is where the student of digital art history applies the principles of market analysis to their own life. You look at the saturation of the niche, the strength of the brand, and the technical stability of the platform. You are acting as both the artist and the investment banker. As we wrap up this portion of the masterclass, it is clear that the lines between art, data, and money have effectively vanished. Your digital footprint is not just a trail of where you have been. It is a map of your economic potential. You are the curator of a complex, multifaceted estate that requires a new kind of literacy to manage. But as we master the economics of the digital soul, a new shadow emerges on the horizon. What happens when the very platform your life is built on becomes the enemy? What happens when the algorithms that once supported your growth are used to suppress your narrative or limit your access to your own history? In the next part, we are going to dive into the world of platform politics and digital sovereignty. We will explore how U.S. citizens are fighting for the right to own their digital history, the rise of the platform-neutral identity, and the specific steps you can take to ensure that no corporation can ever foreclose on your personal art history. You will learn the secrets of digital portability and why being platform independent is the ultimate act of rebellion in 2026. Prepare for the battle over digital sovereignty. The concept of digital sovereignty in 2026 is the primary battleground for the modern American undergoing a life transition. To understand the gravity of platform politics, we must look at the case study of David, a tech consultant in Denver. David and his partner had spent 15 years building a shared digital existence within a single major ecosystem. Their photos, their home security, their professional networks, and even their children's educational records were locked behind a single set of corporate login credentials. When the relationship fractured, the platform did not see two individuals with equal rights to their history. It saw one primary account holder and one guest. In the School of Divorce University, David's first lesson was a harsh one. If you do not own the platform, you do not own the art of your life. He was effectively evicted from his own digital history overnight. Imagine if a museum could suddenly decide that you no longer have permission to view the paintings you helped create. This is the risk of platform dependency. In the United States, we are seeing historical trends where digital infrastructure providers are becoming the silent adjudicators of domestic disputes. By locking one party out of a shared cloud or a family subscription, these platforms are inadvertently taking sides, often based on whoever set up the billing 10 years ago. The abstract perspective of digital art history teaches us that this is a form of cultural erasure. When you lose access to your metadata, you lose the ability to prove your own timeline. Step 1 in achieving digital sovereignty is the implementation of the Portability Protocol. In 2026, the U.S. government has strengthened data portability laws, but the technical execution remains the responsibility of the individual. You must move from a state of platform lock-in to platform neutrality. This involves exporting your data in universal formats: JSON for your records, RAW for your images, and CSV for your financial histories. Step 2 is the establishment of a personal data node. This is a decentralized storage solution that you own and control independent of any Silicon Valley corporation. By housing your digital estate on a node that you physically or cryptographically control, you ensure that your history is not subject to the terms of service of a third party. Step 3 is the decoupling of identity from email. In the digital age, your email address is your passport. If that address is tied to a shared domain or a controlled account, your entire identity is at risk. Let us explore a scenario that highlights the importance of platform-neutral identity. Imagine if your social capital, your professional reputation, and your industry influence was tied to a platform that suddenly changed its algorithm to favor a different type of content. Or worse, imagine if that platform became a point of contention in your legal proceedings. For the student of the Divorce University, the goal is to create a digital presence that is modular. You should be able to unplug your influence from one platform and plug it into another without losing the resolution of your brand. This is the ultimate act of rebellion in 2026, being undeletable. The historical trends in the US suggest a move toward the sovereign individual model. This is the idea that your digital footprint should be as portable as your physical wallet. We are seeing case studies where individuals use decentralized identifiers, or DIDs, to log into services. A DID is not owned by Google or Apple. It is owned by you. When David in Denver finally reclaimed his digital sovereignty, he didn't just get his photos back. He migrated his entire life to a decentralized framework. This allowed him to present his history in court as a verified, untampered record, free from the corporate bias of the platforms he once relied on. This brings us to the aesthetics of digital resistance. In art history, resistance often takes the form of creating work that cannot be easily commodified or controlled by the establishment. In the digital realm, this means creating an archive that is encrypted and distributed. The university curriculum emphasizes that encryption is not about hiding. It is about owning. By encrypting your personal art history, you are placing it in a digital frame that only you have the key to open. This ensures that during a period of transition, your narrative remains private until you choose to reveal it. We must also consider the role of the platform as a witness. Every interaction you have on a digital platform is recorded. In 2026, these logs are being used in U.S. courtrooms to reconstruct the atmosphere of a household. Was there digital harassment? Was there financial concealment? The platform knows. However, the abstract perspective reminds us that the platform only sees the data, not the context. This is why you must become the curator of the context. You must be able to provide the narrative that connects the data points. If the platform shows a spike in late-night activity, you must be able to show that this was due to a professional project or a personal creative pursuit. The potential outcomes of mastering digital sovereignty are a sense of security and a clear path forward. When you are no longer afraid of being locked out of your life, you can negotiate from a position of strength. You are no longer a guest in your own history. You are the sovereign ruler of your digital domain. The Divorce University is not just about the end of a marriage. It is about the birth of the independent digital citizen. It is about learning to navigate the complex web of U.S. digital art history with the skill of a master and the wisdom of a historian. Consider the case of a shared digital library. For many American families, the shared movie or book collection is a significant cultural asset. In a separation, how do you divide a digital library that is technically licensed, not owned? The platforms often make this impossible, forcing families to choose one winner and one loser. The sovereign student prepares for this by maintaining independent records and advocating for a model of shared access or equitable buyout based on the valuation techniques we discussed in the previous part. This is the technical application of justice in the digital age. As we conclude this segment on digital sovereignty, it is clear that the fight for your history is a fight for your future. You cannot move forward if your past is held hostage by a corporation or a former partner. You must take the steps to secure your data, verify your provenance, and establish your platform-neutral identity. But even as we secure the perimeter of our digital lives, a deeper and more profound challenge awaits. How do we deal with the emotional metadata? How do we process the digital memories that are so vivid they feel like the present? In the next part of this deep dive, we are going to explore the psychology of the digital archive. We will look at the case studies of digital grief and the rise of the AI memory curator. You will learn the specific techniques for digital emotional regulation and why the most important part of your art history might be the parts you choose to overwrite. Prepare to dive into the emotional architecture of the 21st century mind. The emotional architecture of the 21st century mind is built on a foundation of persistent data. In previous decades, the ending of a relationship meant the slow fading of physical photographs or the eventual misplacement of old letters. In 2026, the American experience of memory is governed by the high-definition, unyielding nature of the cloud. This brings us to the core of the psychological curriculum within our Divorce University, the management of emotional metadata. To understand this, let us look at the case study of Marcus, a graphic designer in Chicago. Marcus found that while he had legally separated his assets, his digital subconscious was still tethered to his past. His smartphone, utilizing advanced facial recognition, would curate memory reels of his former life every morning. These were not just images, they were data-driven emotional triggers. In the context of digital art history, Marcus was being haunted by his own curated masterpiece. Imagine if your mind had a literal recycle bin where items stayed at 100% clarity forever unless you manually purged the cache. This is the reality for the US public today. Historical trends indicate that the inability to achieve digital distance is leading to a new type of cognitive load. In our masterclass, we define this as the persistent presence phenomenon. Unlike a physical painting that stays on a wall, digital art is dynamic. It follows you across devices. It appears in your notifications. It suggests itself during your most vulnerable moments. The abstract perspective allows us to view these memories as files rather than feelings. By categorizing a memory as a data point in a historical record, Marcus was able to begin the process of digital emotional regulation. Step 1 of this regulation process is the emotional data audit. This involves a systematic review of the automated systems that govern your digital life. You must go into the settings of your photo apps, your social media memories, and your cloud-based facial recognition engines. You are not deleting your history. You are adjusting the exhibition parameters. In art history, museums rotate their collections so that certain works are not always on display. You must do the same with your life. Step 2 is the implementation of the AI Memory Curator. In 2026, there are software tools specifically designed to scan your digital archives and move sensitive or triggering content into an encrypted, time-locked vault. This creates the necessary friction between you and your past, allowing the emotional intensity to dissipate. Step 3 is the creation of new digital benchmarks. You must intentionally flood your algorithms with new data, new locations, new interests, and new social circles, to force the machine to update its understanding of who you are today. Let us explore a scenario regarding the psychology of the digital archive. Imagine if you could use a tool to desaturate the colors of your digital memories, making them appear like distant, historical artifacts rather than immediate realities. This is a technique borrowed from the world of digital art restoration. By visually altering the way we interact with our past data, we can change our psychological response to it. For the student of the Divorce University, this is a vital skill. It is about taking the raw power of a high-definition memory and turning it into an abstract representation of a past era. It is the difference between living in a movie and looking at a storyboard. The historical trends in the United States show an increasing demand for digital wellness consultants who specialize in these life transitions. These professionals are the modern-day curators of the digital soul. They don't just fix your computer, they help you fix your relationship with your data. Case studies from 2026 suggest that individuals who proactively manage their digital archives report a significantly higher rate of successful career pivots and personal growth. This is because they have freed up the cognitive bandwidth that was previously occupied by the digital ghosts of their past. They have reclaimed their internal hard drive. Furthermore, we must address the concept of the digital overwrite. In art history, a palimpsest is a manuscript page, either from a scroll or a book, from which the text has been scraped or washed off so that the page can be reused for another document. Your digital life in 2026 is a palimpsest. Every new piece of content you create, every new search you perform, and every new connection you make is a layer of ink over the old text. The Divorce University teaches that you should not fear the overwrite. In fact, it is a necessary part of the creative process. The old narrative is still there, beneath the surface, providing texture and depth to your current life, but it is no longer the primary message. Consider the role of virtual reality in emotional processing. We are seeing case studies where individuals use VR environments to visit digital recreations of their past homes as a form of closure. This is a high-stakes application of digital art history. By walking through a virtual representation of a shared space, a person can acknowledge the history that was built there, and then literally exit the simulation. It is a controlled, artistic way to say goodbye to a version of the self that no longer exists. This is the potential outcome of using technology not just for utility, but for the profound work of human transition. In the US, the public's character is being shaped by these digital interactions. We are becoming a society of amateur historians, constantly looking back at our own timelines. The danger is that we become stuck in the loop of our own archives. The university curriculum emphasizes the importance of the exit strategy. You must know when to stop looking at the data and start creating new art. You must know when the research phase of your life pivot is over and the production phase begins. This is the mark of a professional digital citizen. The educational tone of this deep dive is meant to remind you that your emotions are valid, but your data is manageable. You are the director of your own historical documentary. If a scene doesn't serve the final cut, it belongs on the cutting room floor. This isn't about being cold or clinical. It's about being an effective steward of your own mental health in a world that never forgets. By applying the principles of digital art history, you gain the distance needed to see the patterns, learn the lessons, and then move on to the next masterpiece. But as we master the internal architecture of the mind, we must also look outward at the social consequences of our digital history. How do our digital archives affect our future relationships? How does the world of 2026 view a person with a complex, documented past? In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to explore the world of digital reputation management and the aesthetics of the second act. We will look at the case studies of high-profile pivots, the rise of the digital brand consultant, and how the US audience is redefining what it means to have a clean slate. You will learn the specific steps for rebranding your digital history and why your past might actually be your greatest asset in the American economy. Prepare to learn the art of the digital comeback. The art of the digital comeback in 2026 relies on a counterintuitive principle. Your history is not a liability to be hidden, but a dataset to be repurposed. In the high-velocity attention economy of the United States, the concept of a clean slate has been replaced by the concept of a refined narrative. To understand this, we must examine the case study of Jordan, a project manager from Charlotte who navigated a public-facing divorce and professional pivot simultaneously. Jordan's digital footprint was heavily indexed with his former life, creating a fragmented brand identity that confused recruiters and potential collaborators. In the curriculum of Divorce University, Jordan had to learn the difference between deleting and curating. Instead of attempting to scrub his past, he treated his digital history like a museum retrospective, organizing his previous decade into a coherent narrative of growth and resilience. This is the hallmark of the digital art historian: the ability to find the through line in a fractured composition. Imagine if you could take a fragmented, shattered mirror and rearrange the shards to create a mosaic that is more beautiful than the original glass. In the US today, we are seeing historical trends where authenticity, inclusive of life's ruptures, carries more social currency than a sterile, unblemished profile. The abstract perspective of digital art history teaches us that the breaks and the repairs are where the texture lies. In the professional world, this is known as the resilience premium. Recruiters in 2026 are increasingly looking for individuals who have mastered the art of the pivot, viewing the successful navigation of a life transition as proof of high-level emotional intelligence and adaptability. Jordan didn't just move on. He rebranded his experience into a case study of crisis management and digital literacy. Step 1 of the digital comeback is the narrative alignment audit. This is where you look at your digital presence across LinkedIn, personal websites, and social archives to ensure that your current mission is the primary focus, while your past acts as the supporting evidence. You are essentially shifting the lighting in your gallery. Step 2 is the implementation of the second act aesthetic. This involves a visual overhaul of your digital touchpoints to signal a new era. This is not about superficial changes. It is about using color theory, typography, and professional imagery to create a clear boundary between the old chapter and the new. In digital art history, this is similar to how an artist like Picasso moved from his blue period to his rose period. The artist remains the same, but the perspective has shifted fundamentally. Step 3 is the strategic deployment of the vulnerability-led bio. Instead of ignoring the transition, you acknowledge it as the catalyst for your current expertise. This creates an immediate human connection in an increasingly automated world. Let us explore a scenario involving the rise of the digital brand consultant. Imagine if you could hire a professional who specializes in the forensics of reputation. These consultants use AI-driven sentiment analysis to determine how the internet perceives your transition. For a student of the Divorce University, this is like having a private curator who tells you which parts of your history are trending toward positive resilience and which parts are creating drag. In Jordan's case, the analysis showed that his posts about navigating complex logistics and technical hurdles during his transition were his highest performing content. By leaning into this, he turned his personal history into a professional asset. He wasn't just a project manager. He was a project manager who had successfully executed the most complex project of all, himself. The historical trends in the United States suggest that we are moving away from the era of the perfect influencer and toward the era of the transparent professional. We see case studies where mid-career pivots, fueled by the School of Divorce University, have led to the creation of entirely new niche industries. For example, there is a growing sector of digital estate planners and algorithmic mediators in the US who only exist because they lived through the very problems they now solve. Their past is their credentials. They have lived the digital art history they now teach. This is the potential outcome of a well-executed digital comeback. You don't just find a new job, you find a new authority. Furthermore, we must address the ethics of the digital footprint. In 2026, the right to be forgotten is a nuanced legal and technical debate. However, for the individual, the focus should be on the right to be contextualized. You may not be able to delete every mention of your past, but you can surround those mentions with so much current, high-value content that the old data becomes a footnote rather than the headline. This is the digital equivalent of an art gallery, adding a contemporary wing to a historical building. The old structure remains, but the focus of the visitor is on the new expansion. Consider the role of the digital archive as a portfolio of personal evolution. For the U.S. public, the character of the survivor is deeply ingrained in our national mythology. When you frame your transition through the lens of digital art history, you are tapping into that myth. You are showing that you have the technical skill to manage your data and the emotional depth to interpret your experience. This makes you a formidable presence in any professional or social environment. You are no longer someone who had a setback. You are someone who has been through the university and graduated with honors. The educational tone of this segment is intended to shift your mindset from defense to offense. Reputation management is not about damage control. It is about narrative construction. You are the architect of your own reputation. In the digital age, your reputation is a living, breathing piece of art that requires constant maintenance and occasional bold strokes of the brush. If the current version of your digital history doesn't reflect who you are today, then it is time to start the next layer of the palimpsest. Think about your LinkedIn profile not as a static resume, but as a dynamic installation piece. How does the narrative flow from your first entry to your most recent update? Is there a sense of momentum? Does the transition period look like a gap? Or does it look like a period of intense research and development? The Divorce University teaches you that there are no gaps, only different types of production. A year spent navigating a complex legal and digital separation is a year spent mastering negotiation, data privacy, and organizational psychology. That is not lost time. That is a master's degree in real-world complexity. As we conclude this part of the deep dive, it is clear that the digital comeback is more than just a rebranding exercise. It is a fundamental reclamation of your power. You have learned how to audit your narrative, implement a new aesthetic, and leverage your history as an asset. But as you step into your second act with a refined digital brand, you will encounter a new set of challenges in the social sphere. How do you navigate the world of digital dating and new social circles in 2026 when your history is just a search query away? In the next part, we are going to explore the aesthetics of digital intimacy and the new rules of disclosure. We will look at the case studies of the digital first impression, the rise of background check culture, and how to maintain your sovereignty while opening up to new connections. You will learn the specific protocols for digital vulnerability and why your curated history is the key to finding your next collaborative masterpiece. Prepare for the masterclass on digital social dynamics. Navigating the digital social dynamics of 2026 requires a sophisticated understanding of the search first impression. In the United States, the traditional introduction has been replaced by the background sync. Before a first date or a new business partnership begins, both parties have likely engaged in a deep dive analysis of each other's digital art history. To understand this shift, let us look at the case study of Chloe, a freelance illustrator in Brooklyn. After graduating from the School of Divorce University, Chloe re-entered the dating and social scene. She quickly realized that her past was not just a memory, but a searchable archive that strangers were interpreting without her context. In the digital age, your vulnerability is a public commodity. Chloe had to learn how to manage the disclosure of her history with the same precision she used for her professional portfolio. Imagine if every person you met was handed a catalog of your life's most difficult moments before you even shook their hand. This is the reality of background check culture in the US. Historical trends show that the barrier to entry for new relationships is higher than ever because of the fear of hidden data. People are looking for red flags in your metadata. The abstract perspective of digital art history teaches us to view this not as an invasion of privacy, but as a challenge in curation. You cannot stop people from searching, but you can control what they find and how it is framed. You are the museum guide for your own life story. Step 1 of the Social Dynamics Protocol is the Managed Disclosure Strategy. This is the process of deciding which elements of your digital history are shared at which stage of a relationship. In 2026, we see a trend toward digital transparency, where individuals provide a high-level summary of their life transitions early on to prevent the shock of a cold search discovery. This is similar to a gallery providing a trigger warning or a detailed artist statement next to a complex piece of work. Step 2 is the digital perimeter check. You must know exactly what a third party sees when they search for you. This involves using privacy-focused search engines and diagnostic tools to map your public-facing data. If there is a piece of digital art, a photo, a post, or a legal filing that is misleading, you must work to surround it with clarifying content. Step 3 is the vulnerability-led connection. Instead of hiding your past, you use it as a filter to find people who value resilience and digital literacy. Let us explore a scenario involving the aesthetics of digital intimacy. Imagine if you shared a digital locker with a new partner, a space where you both contribute files, photos, and shared memories. This is the modern version of moving in together. For someone coming out of a long-term digital union, this can be a daunting prospect. The Divorce University teaches you to approach this with a modular mindset. You don't merge your entire libraries. You create a shared exhibition. You maintain your digital sovereignty while allowing for collaborative creation. This prevents the total entanglement that made your previous separation so complex. It is a lesson in sustainable digital intimacy. Historical trends in the US suggest that the most successful new relationships in 2026 are built on mutual digital respect. This includes protocols for tagging, sharing, and the eventual archiving of shared content. We are seeing case studies where couples draft social media prenuptials, agreements on how their digital life will be handled if the relationship ends. While this may seem clinical, it is actually a high form of digital art. It is the recognition that our digital footprints are valuable and deserve protection. It is a way to ensure that a future transition doesn't result in another case of data-driven displacement. Furthermore, we must address the role of the digital first impression in professional social circles. In the US job market of 2026, your social capital is often tied to your digital network. When you undergo a major life pivot, your network undergoes a stress test. Who stays? Who leaves? Who supports your new narrative? The university curriculum emphasizes the importance of the network prune. Just as an art restorer removes layers of grime to reveal the masterpiece beneath, you must remove connections that no longer align with your current trajectory. This isn't personal. It's a matter of narrative integrity. You want your digital circle to reflect your future, not just your past. Consider the concept of the digital legacy as a social asset. In 2026, Americans are increasingly judged by the quality of the digital footprint they leave behind. Is it a chaotic trail of reactivity, or a curated history of growth? By applying the principles of digital art history to your social interactions, you create a legacy that is attractive to high-value collaborators. People want to be around those who have mastered their own data. They want to partner with individuals who can navigate crisis with the calm of a historian. This is the potential outcome of your time in the Divorce University. You become a lighthouse of digital stability in a sea of data noise. The educational tone here is vital because it moves the conversation away from shame and toward agency. You are not a victim of your searchable past. You are the author of your ongoing history. In the US, the character of the self-made individual is evolving into the self-curated individual. We are all works in progress, and in 2026, the progress is documented in real time. By mastering the protocols of digital vulnerability, you learn how to be open without being exposed. You learn how to be authentic without being vulnerable to exploitation. Think about your social media presence as a revolving door of digital exhibitions. Some posts are permanent collections. Others are temporary installations. You have the right to change the theme of your gallery at any time. If you were a certain person in 2020 and a different person in 2026, your digital art history should reflect that evolution. The transition period is the most interesting part of the gallery. It shows the process. It shows the struggle. It shows the human behind the screen. This is what creates true social resonance in the digital age. As we conclude this part of the masterclass, you have learned how to manage your digital first impressions, protect your social capital, and navigate the complexities of new digital intimacy. You are now equipped to re-enter the world as a sovereign, curated individual. But as you build these new connections and create new digital art, you must look toward the long-term preservation of your history. How do you ensure that your digital legacy survives the rapid changes in technology? How do you protect your life's work for the next generation? In the next part, we are going to dive into the world of digital immortality and archival science. We will look at the case studies of the century-long data plan, the rise of the digital trustee, and how to build a history that outlasts the platforms it was built on. You will learn the specific steps for future-proofing your digital art, and why your history is the ultimate gift to the future. Prepare for the deep dive into digital endurance. The pursuit of digital endurance in the United States of 2026 is no longer about simple cloud storage. It is about the structural engineering of your legacy. In the School of Divorce University, we learn that platforms are transient, but data is a permanent record of the human experience. To understand the gravity of archival science, let us look at the case study of Samuel, a historical researcher in Boston. Samuel spent 2 decades documenting his life through a specific proprietary photo software that went bankrupt shortly after his legal separation. Suddenly, the digital art history of his marriage, his children's early years, and his professional milestones was trapped in a file format that no longer had a reader. This is what we call the digital dark age of the personal archive. Samuel had to transition from being a consumer to being a digital conservator, learning that the medium is not just the message, it is the survival mechanism. Imagine if you spent your entire life painting a masterpiece on a canvas that was designed to dissolve in 20 years. This is the risk of the current US digital landscape. Historical trends show that the average lifespan of a digital platform is less than 15 years. Yet we entrust these platforms with our century-long stories. The abstract perspective of digital art history teaches us that to achieve immortality, we must decouple our data from the interface. We must view our life's work as a collection of raw assets that can be reskinned, re-rendered, and reread by the technology of 2126. This is the shift from temporary storage to the century-long data plan. Step 1 of future-proofing your digital art is the implementation of format agnosticism. This is a technical standard where you avoid proprietary file types in favor of open-source, long-term preservation formats. For images, this means moving beyond simple JPGs to formats like TIFF or PDF/A, which are designed for archival stability. For video, it involves using nonlinear, high bitrate containers that preserve the maximum amount of metadata. Step 2 is the 3-2-1-0 backup strategy, a rigorous protocol used by professional archivists in the United States. This requires 3 copies of your data, on 2 different media types, with 1 copy offsite and 0 errors in the bit-level verification. Step 3 is the appointment of a digital trustee. Just as you would name an executor for a physical estate, you must designate a technical steward who holds the cryptographic keys to your legacy. This ensures that your digital art history does not die with your password. Let us explore a scenario involving the rise of the digital trustee. Imagine if your great-grandchildren could walk through a high-fidelity digital reconstruction of your 2026 home, interacting with the digital art you created and reading the journals you archived. This is not science fiction. It is the potential outcome of current archival trends. For a student of the Divorce University, this long-term view provides a profound sense of purpose. The struggle of the present is transformed into a primary source for the future. You are not just navigating a life transition. You are documenting a pivotal moment in social history. By preserving your digital archives, you are giving the future a masterclass in 21st century resilience. Historical trends in the US suggest that the concept of wealth is expanding to include the quality of one's digital archive. We are seeing case studies where families are setting up digital trusts, legal entities designed to fund the server costs and technical maintenance of a family's digital history for generations. In the context of a domestic split, the division of this trust is a matter of high-stakes cultural preservation. Who will be the guardian of the family's digital soul? The university curriculum teaches that the most effective way to handle this is through shared stewardship, where both parties contribute to a decentralized ledger that ensures neither can delete the history of the other. It is a treaty of digital peace. Furthermore, we must address the aesthetics of digital decay. In physical art, we value the patina of age on a bronze statue or the crackle of paint on a Renaissance canvas. In digital art, decay looks like bit rot and link rot. This occurs when the underlying code of a file slowly degrades over time. To combat this, the modern US digital citizen must engage in active migration. This involves moving data to new storage media every 5 to 7 years to ensure the physical integrity of the bits. This is the manual labor of digital art history. It is a recurring ritual of renewal that ensures your story remains as vibrant for your descendants as it was on the day it was captured. Consider the role of AI in the preservation of the self. In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of personal archival AIs that can index, categorize, and even describe our digital artifacts for future searchability. This is a form of automated curation. These systems can look at thousands of hours of video and identify the themes of your life, the recurring locations, the evolving relationships, the shifts in your professional interests. By using these tools, you are building a searchable index of your soul. You are making it possible for the future to understand not just what you did, but how you felt and why you changed. This is the ultimate gift of the Divorce University: the ability to turn a period of fragmentation into a coherent, enduring legacy. The educational tone of this segment is designed to inspire you to think beyond the immediate crisis. A life transition is a moment of high density. There is more data being generated during a divorce than during a decade of stability. This makes it the most important period to archive correctly. If you can preserve the technical and emotional nuances of this time, you are creating a record of human adaptability that is invaluable. You are the lead historian of your own era. In the US, where we prize the story of the self-made individual, there is no more powerful story than the one that survives the digital dark age. Think about your digital archives as a seed bank for your identity. If everything else was stripped away, your physical home, your current job, your social standing, could you rebuild yourself from your data? If you have followed the protocols of digital endurance, the answer is yes. You have the blueprints of your achievements, the records of your connections, and the artifacts of your creative mind. This is the definition of digital sovereignty. It is the knowledge that your history is secured in a way that is platform independent, format stable, and cryptographically protected. You have graduated from being a victim of technology to being a master of it. As we conclude this penultimate part of our masterclass, you have mastered the internal architecture, the social dynamics, and the long-term endurance of your digital history. You are now prepared to step into the final phase of this journey. But there is one last question that every graduate of the Divorce University must face. Once you have the power to curate your past and secure your future, how do you use that power to lead? How do you turn your individual art history into a collective contribution? In the final part, we are going to explore the world of digital legacy as a form of social leadership. We will look at the case studies of the digital mentors, the rise of the open source life, and how to use your refined narrative to empower the next generation of American citizens. You will learn the final protocol for digital transcendence and why your hardest chapter might become the world's most important textbook. Prepare for the graduation ceremony of the digital age. The graduation from the Divorce University is not marked by a physical ceremony or a paper diploma, but by the moment your digital history ceases to be a weight and begins to function as a beacon. In the United States of 2026, we are witnessing the emergence of the open source life, a radical shift in how we view personal experience. To understand this final protocol of digital transcendence, let us examine the case study of Taylor, a former corporate attorney in San Francisco who, after a high-profile digital separation, decided to open source the metadata of her transition. Taylor did not just survive the process. She documented every algorithmic hurdle, every archival challenge, and every strategy for digital sovereignty she used. By sharing this as a public digital art project, she turned her personal history into a roadmap for thousands of others. This is the ultimate expression of digital leadership, taking the most painful chapters of your art history and offering them as a textbook for the collective. Imagine if every major challenge you ever faced was converted into a piece of instructional architecture that could help a stranger on the other side of the country avoid the same pitfalls. This is the potential outcome of the open source movement in the context of personal life pivots. Historical trends indicate that the US audience is moving away from the consumption of polished perfection and toward the study of documented resilience. The abstract perspective of digital art history teaches us that our lives are not just private collections. They are contributions to a larger, shared database of human adaptation. When you open source your life, you are not losing your privacy. You are gaining a legacy. You are moving from the role of the student to the role of the digital mentor. Step 1 of the digital transcendence protocol is the synthesis of lessons. This involves looking back at your entire digital archive from the last 10 parts of this masterclass and identifying the universal truths. You are no longer looking at the specific details of your own separation. You are looking for the patterns that apply to the human condition in the digital age. Step 2 is the creation of the public archive. This is where you select the elements of your history that have the highest educational value and frame them in a way that is accessible to others. This might take the form of a digital white paper, a serialized art installation, or a comprehensive data visualization project. Step 3 is the establishment of a digital mentorship node. You use your newly reclaimed digital sovereignty to act as a guide for those currently entering the Divorce University. You are the senior who has seen the curriculum and knows how to navigate the exams. Let us explore a scenario involving the concept of the digital mentor. Imagine if, in the year 2026, you could access a decentralized network of peer-verified life histories. Instead of searching for generic advice, you could search for a data-matched historical record of someone who navigated a similar digital estate division or social rebranding. This is the power of the open source life. By contributing your refined narrative to this network, you are helping to build a more resilient society. You are ensuring that the digital art history of the 21st century is not just a record of conflict, but a library of solutions. For a student of the Divorce University, this is the final act of healing. the realization that your struggle has a high-value utility for others. Historical trends in the United States suggest that this model of transparent leadership is becoming the new standard for professional authority. We see case studies where leaders in tech, finance, and the arts are being judged not by their successes, but by the transparency and technical skill with which they handle their transitions. In 2026, a leader who can document a pivot with the precision of a digital art historian is viewed as more trustworthy and capable than one who hides behind a curated facade. This is the resilience premium in action. By graduating from the university and sharing your work, you are effectively positioning yourself at the forefront of the new American economy. Furthermore, we must address the concept of digital altruism. In the digital age, the most valuable thing you can give is your data-backed insight. When you provide the technical steps for securing a digital legacy or the psychological framework for algorithmic regulation, you are providing a service that has measurable social impact. This is the final layer of the palimpsest. You have taken the raw, messy ink of your past and transformed it into a clear, legible script for the future. You have reached a state of digital transcendence where your identity is no longer tied to the events that happened to you, but to the value you have created from those events. Consider the role of the digital archive as a contribution to the U.S. national record. Just as we preserve the letters of soldiers or the journals of pioneers, we must preserve the digital art history of the modern American citizen. Your story, with all its complexities and technological hurdles, is a vital piece of the puzzle of how we lived in 2026. By treating your history with the respect of a conservator, you are ensuring that the American story remains diverse, authentic, and technically robust. You are a part of the permanent collection of the digital age. The educational tone of this entire masterclass has been building toward this moment. You are no longer the person who walked into the divorce university feeling overwhelmed and erased. You are now a sophisticated operator of digital systems, a curator of human experience, and a leader in the field of personal art history. You have the tools to audit your past, secure your present, and engineer your future. You have learned that in the digital world, nothing is ever truly lost if it is correctly archived, and no ending is ever final if it is framed as a transition. Think of your life as a living, breathing museum that is constantly expanding. You are the director, the chief conservator, and the lead artist. The galleries of your past are well maintained and historically accurate, but the focus of the museum is always on the new wing, the one you are building right now. The lessons of the Divorce University are the foundation of this new construction. They provide the structural integrity and the aesthetic depth that will make your second act a masterpiece of American digital art history. As we conclude this 10-part deep dive, you stand at the threshold of a new era. You have moved through the forensic aesthetics of the courtroom, the complex economics of the digital soul, the battle for digital sovereignty, and the psychology of the persistent memory. You have mastered the art of the digital comeback and the social dynamics of the 2026 landscape. You are now ready to take your place as a sovereign individual in a hyper-connected world. But remember, the digital university never truly closes its doors. The technology will continue to evolve, the algorithms will continue to shift, and the history of the future is still being written by your every click. This concludes our masterclass on abstract perspectives on a divorce university online in U.S. digital art history. You are now a graduate. You have the knowledge, you have the tools, and you have the vision. The next time you look at your screen, don't see a series of notifications or a mess of files. See the canvas. See the brushstrokes. See the masterpiece of a life that was deconstructed, analyzed, and beautifully rebuilt. The university has given you the textbook, but the world is waiting for your next exhibition. Go out and create the art of your second act with the confidence of someone who has mastered the digital age. The history of tomorrow begins with the sovereignty you have reclaimed today.